Welcome to a new paradigm of education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers. Today we have a very special guest with us. His name is Chévanni Davids, and he's the father and facilitator and founder of Reimagined Learning Communities, which is based in South Africa. Before I introduce you more, Chévanni, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our podcast for people who are tuning in for the first time. So New Paradigm of Education is an awakening in education. It's a collaborative place, a co-creative place where people come together from all over the world, all over the planet, and share the same vision for creating a beautiful, heart-centered, new place for learning. That looks different for so many people, depending on where you are and what is your big vision. But what I found is that the heart has always come back into the soul of every person that I've been connecting with. So I'll just introduce you a bit more, Chévanni. So he's an active participant in the Unschooling Regenerative Network in South Africa and abroad. And Reimagined Learning Communities is based on a philosophy of diversifying and rewilding ways of learning and putting children into the driver's seats, in their own driver's seats of life. I love that. Considers children as the center of the community practice and realizes the importance of honoring, seeing, and listening our young people. So thank you so much for coming on today's podcast.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy to be here and to be exploring and speaking into something very close to my time here on earth and my life and my spirit.
Awesome, amazing. So I'd love to know a little bit more about this project. It sounds massive and beautiful, and such a vision that you have, the Reimagined Learning Community. Did you want to share with us what is it?
So right now it has taken so many forms. Currently, where it sees itself is as a community intention that's based on, I'm not sure to find out exactly what its source is. I think the invitation to be on this podcast comes through this same affinity of a feeling, a notion, something that's projecting us into this space of rethinking education, and the openness and the ability to communicate that to our communities or the people close to us, and finding people that find resonance with it, especially parents who I think, I'm not sure what it is exactly, if it's something in the food or something in the air, but there seems to be a lot of questioning around the ways that we have been doing things. And I guess the Reimagined Learning Center or the community intention is just an excuse for people to come together and validate this ways, notions, dreams, imaginations of wanting to create change, and looking at specifically young people and the child self, both the child self in bigger bodies and the child self in small bodies. Looking at that sort of space as a way of leading this trajectory. But more questions than answers. It's an inquiry-based community that creates and supports learning opportunities on a community basis, but specifically in and around young people. And there's a center that we sort of piecing together in the Crags in Plettenberg Bay, South Africa. And there is an informal center that has mutated from a formal building into an informal way of getting together in Johannesburg.
Cool. Wow, amazing. And so your vision is to create like a place or a center that families can come to, or is it for just for the children? Is it for everybody, like a community to all come to, and then practicing, like, I know unschooling is like a word, but it's not I'm not going to say it has to be a certain curriculum or anything, but basically people are coming and they're choosing how they want to learn, and they're just doing it in this center that you're developing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there's two parts to this. The center as as a consciousness, uh, a non-material, non-locative consciousness, or culture. So in the center, specifically in the built center, the actual brick and stone, there exists a certain way of being, a certain way of thinking. We have one of the technologies, social technologies that we use is an intention board, where if there's any pursuits of anything, such as uh, wanting to explore dinosaurs, wanting to explore seeds or bugs or tadpoles, yeah, whatever interests or explorations show up within the community, have an intention board. So people have taken this thing that is used at the specific site, and they've started to practice this with at home or within a WhatsApp group or community board. So yeah, so I can say there's two parts to it. There's this locative idea of a center that's an actual building that we transitioned from in Johannesburg and transitioned into with the community here in the Craigs. Um, and yeah, the site, the actual built site influences a culture that extensionally outgrows the actual building. I think that's the current thinking about it. It has mutated so many times, and for now, at this date, this time, this is sort of it. I also see it specifically as I thought about this the other night. I was like, yo, humans have to be together. Our experience of living only has gotten thus far based on the ability to be together. And I think the world that we're moving from uh, created a sense of division and a disconnect in being together. And there's a bunch of sort of conversations and rabbit holes and that sort of thinking. However, with regard to a way going forward and speaking into a new paradigm for education, I think education or culture that creates excuses to be together, just to simply be together. Um, and humans have built society on things like weddings, funerals, initiations, various things. All of these things, for me, in my mind, I just took myself objectively out of it in terms of the deep emotion that these sort of ideas hold, and thought about it as through systematic thinking of the human experience. And I just came to the thought that these are all excuses. So at this point in time, I find myself thinking about the Reimagined Learning Center and the community and the practice that we are engaged in, that I'm engaged in here in South Africa, as creating a cultural excuse to be together in a way that is both safe and expansive, to safe and expensive, and to allow for seedlings or new experiences or new ways of thinking to emerge. And it seems to be so easy for young people to occupy such a thinking of being on the edge of life. And that's how learning sort of takes place, by this edge work that they do so naturally in just being alive. And yeah, I think that's how sort of the main intention focuses on young people, and sort of looks to also uh, support parents in the migration of having to perform tasks like work, and also having a sense of their children being in a safe space. And for parents that maybe are not as dependent on the ability to go out and work, there's this migration of also finding capacity of being resourceful and also receiving resources through works at the center, such as seed saving. uh, I don't know. There's been a bunch of sort of little different trajectories that everybody has found that has aided them in different ways. And yeah, both to the spiritual, to the financial, like just the whole ecology of aid that has sort of showed up with this work. And with it, I talk very like nuanced. I'm new to this because I'm learning as we go. It's mutating and ever growing. It's not like structures from the previous world where it's like fixed and sustainable. This is wild, and it moves and it mutates, and yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess I was just putting it back into a 3D like format for people maybe who haven't seen the quantum or the bigger expansiveness of it, just to kind of visualize, well, what exactly is it? Like if I was just to go there and look like just with fixed eyes. But I totally get what you're saying. Because education, yeah, is alive, and I feel that, and I can feel I can feel what you're saying about the energy of the land is alive, and of course everything around it is alive. So how can it be in a form? And I understand how it's formless. I had the same thing happen to me when I was writing our book, A New Paradigm of Education. I'm like, how do I describe this? It took me so long to write it because it's forever changing. It's evolving, and it's a living consciousness as well. And our solution was that we co-created it with a whole group of us together, so that we could have like different voices and different views. And even then, it's not even finished. Like it's never going to be finished. It's infinite, and it's growing, and it's infinite, and it's expansive. This vision that I have, and that's why people like you even coming on the podcast, it's like you're standing in front of the fire now as part of this channel of energy. So I totally hear you around what you're sharing. I was just also trying to think of other people who maybe want to know, like, well, what is it like from those eyes as well? So, but I really appreciate you being able to speak, just in alignment with spirit, in terms of what you're building, because that's also where the vision comes and flows, and abundance comes. Everything just comes when you're just in that right place. Like it all just kind of just happens, and it's supposed to happen in that way. So I had a question around the children. I was inspired by children when I was in Africa, actually, not in South Africa, but when I was on a safari truck many, many years ago. I looked out the window and I was just like, oh my gosh, these children are so beautiful. And they were looking at me, and they didn't ask me for anything, like, the stereotype of, oh, they're going to ask for money, or they're going to ask me for this or that. And they didn't ask me for anything. They just were smiling at me, saying jumbo, like hello. And they just wanted an exchange, and all they wanted was some water bottles, just some little water bottles that they could use to go to their town and fill water. And it just really put perspective in my eyes, as a traveler traveling through there, of what is necessary and what's needed. And in this example, it was just a smile. And yeah, I guess I was just feeling into the energy of the children on this land. Like, is it a diverse mix of children that is going to be coming, or you're not sure yet? It's still forming, or could you share about that as well?
Yes, the nature of it, of this work and this practice, and I think also sort of the archetype, or the way the previous world was built, it has created a lot of what's the word? A lot of newness, and South Africa is like probably one of the most diverse countries, with even like just having a lot of people from a different experience. I myself, like I share ancestries that are German and also Indian and also Xhosa. So it's quite a melting pot, and I think it would be very, very difficult to try or to experiment in anything homogeneous, because yeah, both just the human experience in this world, in this part of the world, has done a lot to blend and to bring in a lot. And specifically when we look at learning, I think I relate it to be very much similar to some permaculture sort of practices, and about how diversity holds strength and a sense of integrity and a sense of like deep spiritual connection, and also sort of at the same time it also blasts out of it, like, because when I first started this work and this practice, I started to learn that for a lot of people, they regarded homeschooling or any alternative in education to be something maybe for privileged people or for people in specific financial positions. However, this reality was very like I was came to me a bit abstractly, and I was like, serious? Because I come from a space where I grew up specifically like on a farm and in a rural space, and my childhood was now that I found words and I can reflect, I would say it was basically unschooling. We were like the context of how it shows up is maybe that's where we can maybe have a bit of a chat around. But like, yeah, we went out into the bush. We were by ourselves, me and my friends and my cousins, and we went out exploring. And it's cool. It's very interesting as a social experiment where, for instance, kids from maybe a suburban lifestyle meet kids from a rural lifestyle. And maybe let's play with the examples where the rural kid is younger but has like this mad knowledge and skill set around maybe like trekking or bushwork or fishing that is also ancestral and connected to his family and that specific culture. And there's the suburban boys that or young person that knows everything to do with maybe computers and gaming and things from modernity, maybe more modern sort of knowledge and skill set. And then comes this magical moment where friendship is built between these two people. And the book says it's not supposed to happen. They have so much reasons to be different. And I think the safety and the space, like I say, it's like literally just creating safe space. What can happen in the safe space is these friendships and unbeknownst, like literally like like wind moving through the forest, then the different sort of roots of knowledge sharing, of learning, of support, of connection, of belonging start to show up. And I think one example that showed up at the Reimagined Learning Center in Johannesburg was specifically around music and how uh, a young boy and girl shared sort of some cultural drumming practices, and there was this another young boy, slightly older, who brought his electric guitar, and they like just mashed up their experiences together, and I was like, whoa, this is such like crazy human experiences going on now at work, because I doubt like this has happened before in this context where young people just naturally, by for some other reason, organize, mobilize, and create these moments of like very deep, not just knowledge sharing, but just like, yeah, connecting with another person from a different culture, from a different group. And yeah, that's that silent hidden teacher in the space. So yeah, naturally this thing has shown up to be a diverse thing. And it also, I think there's a cool narrative for people that are maybe coming from a space of maybe being so entangled in a lot of commitments that can't see like light or difference. Where this example of unschooling or alternative education is taken outside of this idea as something for privileged people, but rather put in a light that sees it's a more of a remembering from something that exists. I think what 200 years here in South Africa, or 150 years, the modern school has been around. So what was there before that? And there's such a rich history from diverse cultures, especially in Africa. Uh, yeah, with just multiple languages, multiple ways of greeting, like there's 12 official languages. So I found that a lot of the kids even naturally just start to learn each other's language through play. And yeah, it's I think the diversity element plays such a big and important role in it.
Amazing. Yeah, I can feel that energy. That's really really powerful. And a really important point is like, yeah, 200 years the world has been so fixated on this certain type of learning, and we all know that that isn't working anymore, and it hasn't been working. And it's great that people are waking up and going back to ancient ways and new ways as well, and combining them all. And yeah, I can feel the heart of that there, and I can imagine the learning there is a mix of, yeah, what you're saying, a mix of everything that they want, like that you can have it all in the learning. It doesn't have to be one way or another. It's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you a question because you spoke to me previously and you said maybe to speak about the biology of learning, learning from human nature, renaissance of education. What did you mean by all of that?
So in various reflections, both in my personal life, both like in the perspective of like, I think for now, I just recently became a father. Our son
Oh, wow.
is 14 months old.
Oh,
Yeah, 14. Yeah, 14 months old. And I've been like in the practice of doing like beginning to build community. Came in as a facilitator that was supposed to administer homeschooling education. Um, and I've just been put in a scenario where I haven't been given a specific skill set or specific curriculum to sort of provide, and all I had was memory. And memory was based on this experience where we used to stay on the farm, and all our cousins used to come to our house. And my mom was still worked in education, but was a teacher. And I don't know how. This is also part of my sense making and my journey to sort of make sense of this new paradigm of education in a deep personal way. Where I think about my mom, and I have an older brother and a younger brother, and she was a teacher, and she done like thousands of experiments. I mean, I'm yet to like really question her as to what was her what evoked that sort of wanting to experiment with young people. Where does this affinity or this spirit of facilitation or teaching or mothering, where does in this way come from? Where she like, yeah, she done mad experiments on us, and she created games for us, and yeah, the things that we learned from my mom are still continuously to be unpacked, uh, as I love, and it's due to how she facilitated us, or facilitated spaces for us, and going from the toughest times to some good times, in the experience of being like a child. uh, I wanted to not just put all the energy on my mom, and I started to think about this, possibly to also think about my biology, to think about the fact that I got eyes that can see, ears that can hear, a nose that can smell. Everything is based on reception. Our body is a vessel of reception. So what that means is that, and I saw this with Aya. The first time our son's name is Aya. When I saw this with Aya, I saw the moment, and it hit me in such a different way, having been in the practice of reimagining education for like my 20s, and Aya being born when I turned 30. Like, I knew all of these things from theoretical practice and even facilitating with other kids. But now with Aya, when he was born, I could see the moment he started learning. I could see how his eyes were really receiving information. I could see how he were touched, and still, like at 14 months, it's like I can see the learning. I'm like, it's so wild, it's so crazy. It's like unbound, and yeah, it puts learning in a very new space. It puts learning back in our hands, back in our bodies. It puts learning in our biology, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. As I have Aya's great grandfather, my grandfather. Um, he still is a body of learning. We have long conversations, and even at when we mature and we reach these eldership or spaces of being old or elder, the learning is still as on fire. The forest is still growing, and pushing out oxygen, and mycelium and wild new mushrooms are being discovered in the landscape of learning, both for my grandfather and for Aya. And going back to looking at our biology and how we are vessels of reception, you can start to see how we are like built to learn, and 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 then, yeah, it puts more questions. I think that that theory, or that envisioning that, for me, it just creates more questions about learning experiences, and like meeting parenting now it has been quite a beautiful time and space to really go deep in this research of looking at the biology of this learning experience. And to go on to that renaissance, I think that is more just a celebration of me meeting you and like the network, how Atabe, you spoke to Atabe, and just there's this network and connection, and we live in the time where there's phones and this sort of Wi-Fi and internet, and there's a lot of sort of yay and nay about it. And I think for me, I'm finding moments of celebration where for a long time I felt very alone in this work. I felt very shame came into it, self-doubt, validation issues, still dealing with those, imposter syndrome, still dealing with those, especially when people put you in a space of leadership. Where they, like, before I became a parent, parents were trusting me with their kids, and I was like, "What? That's mad." Like I don't like that I still think about it, and I'm like, shit, I can't believe parents trusted me with as not being a parent with their kids, and it was more just channeling my mom's spirit, channeling what she done for us, and it's still that I carry forward in this conceptualization of reimagining education or taking it to a different space. For me, I take it home, I take it to my mom, and her experimentation and her care and the support of, I don't know, I think anybody can reflect upon a moment of where they were either in nature or either with somebody, or maybe even in the thought of connecting with a deity or a greater force, where you feel most seen, most heard, most loved, most safe, even just a moment. And I think my mom had a art and a way of creating that for a lot of people, and in the classroom, in the community, and in this podcast, as I'm speaking to you, this is the first time that I'm thinking about it like that. She created a safety, and that essentially that safety, that being seen, that being heard, is this reimagining education for me. And this is the extension of what I provide as a facilitator, what I provide for parents who are transitioning and questioning, what I provide for myself and for my questioning, what I provide for Aya and my partner. Yeah, it's this sense of home that I think is a big part of this work.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm so happy and grateful that we got to meet so that you could also have that moment of reflection. It's like it's all just aligned in a certain way. And what you're sharing is just such a common theme of what a lot of people I meet with talk about is like the need for connection. That's human nature. And then beyond that is the thing that also fascinates me, what you were sharing around the intuition. And I really believe, like, I can even hear how you're speaking. You're just speaking using intuition. And I really believe that that is like also part of education. And a lot of people who have been trained as educators in the past, you know, we were studying these books that we would then be reading to the children and kind of regurgitating this information in this kind of form, even going to university. Like all of this stuff is all being done through kind of, we must read, we must then process and reflect. And but it's a different kind of learning and wisdom that comes when you're just being able to channel it in, like through your consciousness, through your evolution, like you're sharing around biology. And I also really feel that that is definitely a key aspect of education as well. It really inspired me in our first book, because in our first book, I encouraged all the authors to not worry about, you know, the research, just to go into their heart and share their story. And by doing that, we would be helping to transform education, because, you know, here we all are, you know, we had like, you know, a professor and a psychologist and, you know, other teachers, all of us with our hats, you know, and I'm like, okay, let's just throw them all away and just like share from our heart what it is that we need to share. And what was really cool about it was like, all of the different views that people had on education, when we linked them all up, it all came back to education of the soul, education of the heart, connection, and all this stuff that you're sharing. And we all just kind of shared it in our own way and our own evolution of it. But yeah, I really feel like this ancient wisdom definitely is education, and it's something that is processing, like what you were saying through about your baby. Like it's a information, it's just like a process that comes to you with not even needing to do anything, like and it's like one thing after another. And how do you even capture that in a way, because there's just so much, right? You know.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of an experiment. So when I engage with, especially like parents, this happened with the pandemic, where a lot of parents had their kids come home and started maybe questioning some of the school system. But when they spoke, especially when we spoke through affinities of this biology of learning, it was still very abstract for people to meet and for people to really connect with. So we thought about this experiment of like inviting parents to try to learn nothing for one day. And we even had a day in the learning center in Johannesburg, called, I think it was somewhere just after what people call Valentine's Day, like the 16th of Feb, where it was day of trying to learn nothing. And to anybody who will be listening, and everybody that will be listening to this podcast, it's maybe also an invitation to you to try to take on learning nothing for one day. And that will set alive, like just, yeah, set the tone for embodying the practice of learning and realizing how, yeah, untamed this experience is. Like literally, I go to sleep thinking, what the first thing I'm going to learn tomorrow, knowing that something is going to happen and something will show up. And yeah, I think that's very interesting. I can speak very briefly onto like just a little moment that we were in, with regard to the learning center and the Rangers Hut here in the Crags. So for the past like 4 months, uh, we've been trying to land and find a site for this learning center. And there was lots of like stress from the parents about not finding the right place. There was stress around the team that was in leadership of like trying to find the space, in terms of people that were just dropping us. Like they said that it's okay, we can have the center at the specific premises. And then last minute, they pull out, and it was quite emotional and messy. And and then eventually just finding this hut, uh, through a very beautiful affinity of its own. However, in between searching, stressing, and eventually finding the space was this experience of just having this mat and having all these young people for about 4 hours a day. And I was used to, so I just migrated out of the leadership I was in Johannesburg, where that it was this actual building that had a huge permaculture garden, had a music room, had marimbas, had a quiet room, had a basement, had all these trees. It like had everything. It captured the dream. However, for me, it started to become a bit boring, because there was this beautiful aesthetic for this practice of self-directed education. And what I found is that, uh, it became too locative in its aesthetic. It became too comfortable in its aesthetic, whereas it started, like, I think it started showing up as a drop and go type of experience, and I wasn't feeling a sense of connection or belonging. And it was showing up in all sorts of ways within me. And that's also why I began this process of reimagining leadership in liberation spaces, or in this new paradigm of education. What is leadership, and how can it show up in ways that are maybe more gentle and more landscape, or what's it, horizontal? Yeah, but that's another thing. So I come from this building of this excellent space that's well resourced, and we reduce all of that to this one blanket, and no building, no nothing. And because of the nature of this place in Plettenberg Bay specifically, we are around a very rural area, and there are a bunch of animal sanctuaries. So we just yesterday we were at the snake sanctuary, snake and reptile sanctuary. Uh, there's a wolf sanctuary. There's an elephant sanctuary, Not that we have been to those places yet. There's also just the beach, and there's a few bodies of water and a forest. And with moving this blanket through the forest, yesterday to the snake sanctuary, to the dam, a new, real sort of deep sort of connection and spiritual connection to this work has been showing up, where it also plays at this idea of poverty and privilege. And in the simplicity of just a simple blanket and the space of home, the sense of being seen, the sense of being heard, the sense of being safe, and the wild, messy, chaotic, beautiful nature of young people, specifically between the ages of like 3 and 10 years old, in being in the forest or being at the dam or being at the beach, just brings this whole other world of learning experiences, and not having a plan every day, just literally winging it, so to say, has been such a crazy experience. Uh, so yeah, I think it's also something that I'm like so keen on sort of sharing, is moving away or moving in this new paradigm, like rethinking privilege, rethinking resources, specifically around, I think, people that are trying to start centers for people that think they don't have enough or don't have community. Uh, yeah, we've found great community in like the more than human world, being the beach, being plants. Yeah, and I think it also broke that question of belonging to something that is like, instead of being outward and looking for community, realizing the community that you already naturally belong to. And yeah, I think being in a rural setting really just opened up that window to really embrace that experiencing of really feeling a sense of hospitableness by just natural wild elements.
Wow. Yeah, I can feel that as well, and really connecting deeply with the resonance of the nature, like you're sharing, and co-creating with that as well. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that story. So before we close for today, I have another question around your vision. What is your vision for New Paradigm of Education? I ask every guest that comes on the podcast, and I'm always excited to hear the answer for this.
A vision for so when I think when you sent the prompt earlier, uh, so much has happened in between that
Of
once
course,
again
vision changes.
that constant mutation. So I'm just taking a breath to breathe into it at this moment in time. I think in this my vision for education is is in this moment exact is in this exact moment. It's I'm super grateful and super thankful for the ability to be connecting with another human being that represents a whole bunch of human beings on the other side of the world, and having sort of this platform such as a podcast that connects to still a hundred and thousand more other beings that are drawn by certain ideas or by certain, I don't know what's going on, but drawing people to connect. And I think I'm living in a space of vision. Not to say I'm a visionary, but I think we are visionaries. It's a visionary moment, and I feel like we breathe in this vision. This vision is alive. It doesn't lie in my future. It actually, I can't see it in the future, because everything that I've been learning has been coming together. It's like it's been meeting this one moment, and in this one moment is this vision. And it's so crazy, because for a lot of things, like we can't dream of the things that we've experienced or have we went through. We couldn't possibly put it together ourselves. There seems to be some other forces and things at play that create moments. So I think I'm finding a great sense of peace in just honoring and being grateful for this human experience, and this human experience of connecting and speaking and dreaming and remembering visions. education and learning in this new paradigm.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I hear you on that. And being in the now is also definitely important space to be in, because that offers full presence for whoever you're with, whether it's the children, yourself. And from that place is where the gifts come through and the energy comes through and the learning comes through effortlessly, because it's like if we're just fixated on the moment of the past or the future, we're missing that aspect of learning as well. So yeah, I totally hear you on that. And yeah, I've really enjoyed also hosting these podcasts, because yeah, it's amazing to just meet all these people around the world that all, are all doing amazing things. I'm blown away every podcast by every person I've ever met. Like, we've got so many different ones. If anybody's tuning in, just go through our little library online. We've got so many different people, all, all from all over the world doing their part in education. And you'll notice that the common themes as well, and definitely connection, like you're sharing, is definitely one of those. And I love that your vision is fluid and changing, because mine is as well. It's always changing. But what I also love is that you're physically creating a step, like you've actually landed one of the steps physically by creating a center and grounding a step of the vision in. And so what I wanted to share is, or you can probably share as well, is that Shay is building this beautiful project along with a whole lot of different people, and he's also raising funds to make it really happen. Did you want to share a bit about that part of it as well, so we can get a feel of that?
Oh yes. So there's this ranger's hut that is sort of found us and we found it. It's in the Tsitakama forest, which is an indigenous forest, one of the biggest indigenous forests here in South Africa. That's why it's also very themes of conservation and sanctuaries seem to be quite the energy of the space, and big sort of site of indigenous cultures and practices and wisdoms around there. And there's this ranger's hut that's in the forest that has been sort of not loved. It hasn't been loved or cared for. It has been, yeah, it has been uh, sort of in the entanglements of our world, and now sort of reaches us and meets us at the space of imagination and dreaming and creation. And we currently have this fundraiser that's basically just to create a sense of hospitality and home by fixing the simple stuff like windows, putting up a water catchment system, getting a basin, just getting this place basically shaped to begin the experimentation here in the crags. Yeah, and looking at how the space will shape and mutate in service of the young people of the area, in service of the older people in the area, and in service of the more than human world and what it has to offer and teach us.
Beautiful. And as part of our book contribution, the authors and I, for the first 5 days, we're going to be giving donation towards your organization as well, to help your community of people to co-create a new paradigm, because that's what co-creation is, isn't it? Giving and receiving. And when we were visioning the book, we were thinking, well, we want to donate our first 5 days of promotional funds to some organizations. We weren't sure who it would be. We knew it would be with children, and I love that yours is definitely in alignment with the new paradigm, and that you're in a place of manifestation and co-creation. So it feels really in alignment. So we will be supporting you with that.
Wow.
And yeah. And then also, I'm sure other people will will be coming to support you as well. So anybody else who feels called to, or even if you feel called to buy our book, A New Paradigm of Education Rising, buying that book will also be directly going through to other people, So that's the whole vision of the book, is to be able to, by you reading the book, you're able to feel the energy and maybe be inspired to create something yourself, but also physically buying the book, you're contributing to other amazing projects such as Shay's project, or, other kind of new paradigm projects. So yeah.
Your massive gratitude to you, the authors, the different affinities that have brought you guys here, your kids. And yeah, I'm so grateful to be in a world right now where there's this rupture and this beautiful fruition of this new paradigm, not just only in education, but I think in our bodies, in our hearts, in our minds. So super grateful for the work you guys do as well.
Yeah, I'm grateful for your work as well, because I can feel it's totally just in resonance with soul, and coming to you, that it's a mission that you need to do, that you need to be there to serve on this land, to create this place. It's so, yeah, totally. Humble gratitude as well. And I'm just really grateful for being able to be in the space of just meeting so many different people and co-creating this world vision together. Like when the vision of the new paradigm came to me, I was just like, this is massive, I can't do this. Why do you choose me, like, please? And then I realized it's not my vision, it's just something I'm here to channel and to support everybody. So then it's so much easier, right, when it's this co-creative place, and
Yes.
that's what it is, so okay, well, thank you so much for everybody today for tuning into our beautiful podcast, The New Paradigm of Education. If you feel resonant to call into our group, we've got a group, A New Paradigm of Education, and we'll also put all your links as well for your project, Shay, as well, and your fundraiser and all of that stuff. We'll place it into the links at the bottom for anybody who's wanting to tune in as well. So yeah, we'll close by saying, be the change you wish to see in this world, by Mahatma Gandhi. Whatever that change is, just small step, big step, do it with a smile. Namaste.